Hello, everybody. Today is a fabulous day. I get a lot of fun visiting with folks on my podcast. My name is Stu Turley, President and CEO of the Sandstone Group. We're here with the Energy News Beat, and I've got Richard Welch stopping by. He is a extraordinary guy. He is a believer in the Second Amendment and American all the way around. And we just had a great little chit chat. Richard ran for the Texas 38 district and had a slugfest with all these other people out there. We're going to talk to Richard about how it is to run for office. Richard, thank you for stopping by today.
Thanks for having me on.
Boy, that was an open-ended like this. Thanks for having me on.
Just
that is the first time
a
politician has ever come forward. Thanks for having. Politicians are like preachers. I mean, you turn the pulpit over and they're 2-3 hours, right? Okay. So we're going to ask some questions. We're going to try to figure this out, and we're going to say, what was it like? Tell us your background. Tell us why you decided to run for Congress.
So I'm a veteran. I'm a
Cool.
native-born Texan. Pretty much right out of high school, I joined the Army, and I did my 6.5 years, and decided, I wanted to get out and explore other avenues of life, and that led me straight into the chemical plants. Right out here at the Houston Ship Channel. And, I've been rocking steady ever since. I decided to run for Congress because I saw the First Amendment under attack, during all this COVID crap, is you got to stay indoors and people implementing curfews about when an American can go outside or not. That's about as unpatriotic as you can get, and then they're trying to tell us that we can't go to church and pray. And when you start seeing cops sitting out in the parking lots of churches monitoring, how many people are going in and out, or if they're even going in or out, that's somebody needs a spanking by the principal on that one, because somebody has their priorities messed up. If they're going to tell a Baptist they can't go to church, Right.
No, all the pastors and my pastors always said I'm job security for him. I'm such a mess. So I got to go. I mean, it's just not optional, but
there you go.
I agree with you on that. So that, the lockdowns didn't help any. And it seems like the states that had early, like Texas and Florida, survived financially better.
Well, sure. They tried to come and do a lot of these lockdowns, which are unconstitutional, and these vaccine mandates, which are highly unconstitutional. I can't believe anybody even put up with that here in the great state of Texas, and the fact that we had our own governor actually pushing this at the beginning is just such a travesty, and it's such a letdown, and the people of Texas deserve so much better.
Right. So as we go through this, tell us about and thank you for your service, by the way. Yay! I give you a hug, but we're on Zoom, so it's kind of a
air hug.
Zoom hug there. Thank you for your service. It is very much appreciated, and when we got to thank our service members. And so when you sit back and go, what was it like when you were out running against the other, was it 9 folks in the runoff? Is that what it was?
Yeah, there was 9, including myself.
Wow. Tell us what you did on the road and how the whole runoff went.
Well, speaking about, thanking veterans, Boots for Troops, look them up. Very good outfit if you want to help the men and women in uniform around the world. They send care packages and stuff out. Great outfit. Go
Nice.
Go to bootsfortroops.com and check them out. But the run was quite the adventure and quite the learning experience. You got to see a lot of different conservative views, from people running, and You got to see a lot of people compromising what they started off saying they were going to run on versus what they ended up running on, going with the populist flow.
Wow.
It was very wild,
So
very
are you
entertaining,
saying
and
some people may have turned into rhinos during the road?
well, I think some people were rhinos in the beginning, and when they started getting a lot of pushback, they realized, hey, that's not really, gonna cut it here, and that's not what the people want. If you're gonna run on a true grassroots foundation, you're a lot of people quickly found themselves, at the
Ruh-roh.
burning end of the stick. Yeah.
They were Scoobied.
Yeah, but
Ruh-roh.
in the end,
Yeah.
that's exactly what happened. A rhino got in office, and the big money behind these people, out of state, out of districts,
Wow.
campaign donations from other PACs and other legislators, shoving money in their campaign account, people buying them, 20-second ads on Fox News, and you
Mhm.
know I saw one candidate. We did an endorsement Zoom meeting for the Houston Chronicle, and
Right.
one of the candidates that didn't even bother to show up ended up getting the endorsement because he had the most amount of money. I mean, explain that to me. This whole system is really rigged, and
Right.
if you don't have people that are willing to stand up and walk with you and say, hey, this guy represents my values, and
Right.
I need to give this guy 2 to 3 hours a week of my time to really
Right.
help him out. No true grassroots conservative is going to stand a chance against the big money neocons.
Wow. It's so sad that money has really stepped into our politics. And when you were talking just a second ago about your expertise in the channels, go back to your or were you when you were working, what were you doing in the channels? Because that just kind of intrigued me there for a sec with your oil and gas experience. What were you
Well,
doing in there?
I started off working maintenance, as a boilermaker for one of our local, shut down, turnaround crew companies out here. I'm not going to
Wow.
drop any names, but then, I was lucky enough that I started taking the mechanical aptitude tests for a lot of these refineries, and I ended up working for Covestro. So, actually in operations, working for the facility,
Nice.
making products, shift work, holidays, Christmas, birthdays, the whole
Right.
9 yards. And I've kind of been on the operations side of things since then.
Nice.
Um,
So
yeah,
you're on the
I've worked.
you're on the front lines of the downstream, and you understand what it takes in order to get all this stuff done, correct? I mean,
Well, I'm not just downstream. I've worked midstream and upstream as well. I've worked all
nice.
three streams of the oil and gas industry.
Nice. So when you sit back and go, that's some real experience for somebody in Congress, because we're in an energy crisis right now, and somebody needs to understand in Congress, how in the heck do we get out of this energy crisis?
Well, so that's the other part of it, is you have a bunch of, non-industry personnel, somebody that can't tell you where a master valve is out there on a frac site, trying to regulate emissions and what they think is going on out there, you
Right.
know. And this whole Department of Environmental Justice is run by a bunch of social justice warriors that
Right.
have, they have no clue what goes on inside of these refineries or petrochemical plants, or even these
Yep.
midstream pipeline companies. They don't know. They don't bother to ask. I've
Wow.
tried talking with several of them, and they just
Right.
hang the phone up on you. It's all about an agenda, and what can we push and what can we pass.
Wow. And I got to talk with some folks just recently, and some of the ways that we can get back and let me ask you this one, because this one really irritated. I got all worked up this morning when I saw this one. I already knew it, but when seeing it in print again, that all of our oil that was released out of the SPR has been exporting to China, and it really
What
didn't help all that much.
what is
So
going to Europe?
going to
Yeah, they're
Europe,
there's yeah, they're selling it to Europe.
wow,
Most of the diesel that's up there on the northeast coast,
right.
they're selling all of our diesel over to Europe while prices are climbing here at home.
And that's ridiculous. It just doesn't make sense because Europe is now got that serious problem with natural gas, with Putin holding the keys to the spigot. Nord
Yep,
Stream 1 is going to shut down. And I've got a bet. In fact, I'm willing to take a bet with anybody. It may not come back online for months or if at all, because they're doing pipeline repairs right now.
right.
How in the world are they going to build their supplies back up during this problem, if that makes sense? You sit back and kind of go, so in getting ready for our stuff right now, Texas, we got to build up our reserves again. How in the world are we going to build up our reserves for winter when we're doing that kind of crap?
You
It doesn't
know,
make sense.
but they're going to have to let us turn the spigot on. They're
Right.
going to have to pull the gloves off. They're going to have to get rid of, I know they don't want to, and they're pushing all this green and they want to, send the EPA to Texas to squeeze the neck a little bit harder. But in
Right.
order to get through this,
Right.
they're going to have to open it up. I mean, I cannot believe that they are that number one, they canceled permits in the Gulf. I mean, I cannot believe that at a time where, you know, the
Yeah.
price per barrel is the highest it's ever been. And they're wanting to limit the supply even more to drive the price up higher,
Right.
and everything they're doing now, they cancel permits in the Atlantic and Pacific as well. Just last week they did it.
Right.
So, I mean, I don't know how much more they can actually suffocate the industry
Right.
and still have a functioning society.
It
Because
doesn't
the
make any
next
sense.
problem, yeah, the next problem that we're gonna have
Right.
is lubricating oil. We're already in a shortage, the additives are in a shortage, and
Wow.
we're sending so much of our lubrication oil to be refined for
Wow.
gasoline to try and get the price manageable. We're going to have a serious transportation problem here within the next 60 to 90 days, and it's
No
going to
way.
be worldwide.
All right, let me tie this to renewables because I read an article this morning. I got to fact check myself because I'm only 12 mentally. So, when you got to fact check yourself, it's really horrible. But on the windmills, they take, I think, 700 gallons or something like that. What, quarts or gallons? 700.
Right, 700 gallons.
700 gallons. Okay, I'm not smoking total crack then. So 700 gallons, that's a lot of lubricants that has to be changed every few months.
Sure it is. Sure it is. And without the lubricating oils that are going into these wind turbines, you're not going to have them either.
Wow.
But
Because,
the main thing that's going to be affected is the trucking industry,
oh,
because
yeah.
yeah, I mean they're burning through, what is it? I think it's 27 gallons a month is the average 18 wheeler goes through. So
Right.
yeah, I mean think about that in
This
terms
is
of,
frightening,
yep,
Richard, because I was pulling my crayon out the other day and I was sitting there writing down, we have Europe in a diesel crisis. Russia is selling more oil because of the sanctions. China is buying it. India is buying it. And then Iran has 4 refineries, just to your point, has 4 refineries that they are selling back to the US. And so we're selling ours up there. We're buying it from Iran, who hates us. I started kind of trying to figure out a price. I was coming up with $10 to $14 a gallon for diesel. I mean, I
Oh,
could see that
diesel.
happening fairly soon.
Well, the other part of that is the Biden administration is wanting to lift sanctions on Iran, which
Right,
they've already lifted some.
right. That's exactly
Iran
why, because they want to buy more.
Iran just cut a deal with China for they're going to sell them crude oil at $40 under market price per barrel.
Wow.
$100 a barrel is what they just cut a deal with China for.
Right.
So while we're sitting there giving all of our crude to Europe, Iran is cutting China a deal to send them all the crude, and while we're left hanging out in the wind, and our strategic reserve is going dry.
Well, I just also saw a little while ago that, Biden was begging Venezuela to try to start, but then Venezuela kicked in a new contract with Iran. And so we're going to see where that Russian oil goes to Iran and then goes right over to Venezuela, or just goes straight to the US, you know.
Right, but so this is what I don't understand. The Biden administration is preaching climate change, and they
Right.
want to send the EPA to Texas to curb methane emissions. Why don't they just let us do it here at home? I mean, we're decades ahead of any other country as far as
Right.
technology goes into drilling. We drill it safer and more economically responsible than
Wow.
anywhere else in the world just because of technology. So the fact that they're trying to cut us off here at home, and they're trying to buy oil from
Right.
Iran, Venezuela, and everywhere else they can right now, they're actually promoting more harm to the environment by doing that, by buying dirty oil.
Let me ask you this, Richard, because this is cool. I just love having our conversation here, because we got a whole gamut of stuff to talk about. In downstream, and I was taking a look, the last really big refinery that we had was back in 1977, and since then we've had all these other small refineries come in, and the small
Mhm.
refineries don't have the same regulations as the EPA and everything else, and so they can get away from the biofuels and all of those other kind of things. So when we sit back and go, it with a stroke of a pen, couldn't they go ahead and then allow? So let me back up. My phone was bothering me there for a sec. So when you take a look at biofuels, last year biofuel diesel was $2 a gallon more than just regular diesel without any biofuel. I mean, it was somewhere in that range. So if we
Okay.
just use that as a ballpark, so we have so many of the smaller refineries, and if we allowed them to not mix it with biofuel, we could turn that biofuel and get $2 a gallon from all the smaller refineries with a stroke of a pen, because that's a regulation that's allowed. Doesn't that make sense?
Well, I mean, yeah, it makes sense. The of course the biofuels that they add in the diesel stretches it out. It dilutes the diesel to a point to where it's
Right.
not quite as effective, and especially with this, the low sulfur diesel,
Right.
it really makes them more inefficient, and takes away a lot of the horsepower from the diesels, which
Thank you.
that they could be spending less fuel, making more power, and getting the same results. But the
So
reason why there hasn't.
is ethanol, sorry, Richard.
No, 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 it's okay.
Is ethanol the same way? Because I've always hated ethanol. I mean, let's use corn for what corn should be used for. And I hate ethanol from a standpoint. I just soon have no ethanol. But that seems to me that 10%, I mean, doesn't do much for cars.
Well, it really doesn't, and the whole ethanol is it's not very healthy for engines either. They
Right.
hold a lot of water and erode a lot of the gaskets and plastics, and things that are in these engines. I mean, you can barely keep a lawnmower running for more than a year and a half or 2 years, and you're having to replace carb gaskets and everything else on them. It just eats them up.
My wife
That's why
kept
a lot of
saying,
these,
I keep
yeah,
destroying lawnmowers, and she's like,
yeah, it's the ethanol in those things. But the reason why there hasn't been another refinery since 1978 is because every time that we get these Democrat presidents in there, especially since Obama, they keep pushing to
right,
move toward renewables, and
right,
so the expansion for them is they don't see it as very profitable. So there's no reason for them to expand, to make more gasoline when the government keeps coming down on the gasoline part of this with
right,
regulations and emissions. So it's really not profitable for them to keep doing it. And people are screaming, hey, it's a necessity, you
right.
have to do this. Well, people need to understand that these are private corporations and they're allowed to do whatever they want. You
Oh,
can't make them do it.
I got so tickled when I was watching something the other day, and one of the Biden administration folks said, "We're just going to tell everybody to cut their prices." I'm like, "You're going to cut their prices at the gas station when they have skinny margins and they don't set the price, and the only way they make money is by selling Twinkies."
But
Um,
so that's another thing people don't realize. I saw Biden, he threw out a tweet saying, he's going to talk to the gas stations about lowering the price. And I'm like, these
yeah,
guys make 3 cents a gallon. What is that going to do for you? You might save $3 a year. It's, come on now. People need to get realistic, but unfortunately, people, they look to the president, and they're taking what he says as gospel truth,
right,
and it's a great disservice to the people that our top leadership can throw out such
right,
misinformation and start demonizing an entire industry
right.
on the principles and regulations that he is enacting himself.
Right.
It's don't look at what I'm doing. Here's the bad guy, even though
Right.
I'm putting them in the chokehold. They're
Well,
now they're screwing us over.
Richard, your point with uh, um, legislation through regulation was just fabulous just a second ago. Did I talk like a Texan? Fabulous. Holy smoke.
Fabulous.
Fabulous. Okay. Everybody in Texas could understand what I just said, but um, legislation, legislating through the regulations with the EPA, that Supreme Court ruling has got to help, but it's still going to be slow walked. I mean, so, by them being able to say, because the EPA was coming into the Permian and trying to say we're going to shut it down because of the air quality. That's not going to do anything by shutting the Permian down, but at least you got a lawsuit that you can do that takes years.
Well, I mean, the only thing that they're going to do by shutting down the Permian Basin is put the world in a gridlock as far as crude oil goes, especially the American people. I mean,
Right.
Permian Basin puts out a third of the oil for the United States every single day. And if you
That's a lot
think
of
if you
oil.
th- if you think oil is high now, or the price at the pump is bad right now,
Right.
if the Permian Basin shut down, we'd be looking at $9 a gallon overnight. And
Easily.
that's just plain and simple facts.
Oh yeah. So you, yeah, we could solve half of the world's problems today, just me and you. So, you sit back and kind of go, there's got to be a way. And I think educating folks and taking a look around the room. I've seen this one before. I believe it was either Energy Strong or some of the other folks had great commercials, and you start just disappearing things, everything that has oil
Hmm.
or natural gas, and how you
Right.
use it just starts evaporating and going away. We're going to come into a food crisis here coming up quick because of the lack of fertilizer. Natural gas is a huge deliverance for part of the whole process.
Sure it is. Sure it is. And you know, as you know, I'm involved with the Oil and Gas Workers Association, and that's what we do. You know, we go around educating the public on just how much stuff is available
Right.
to them, you know, by product of, you know, natural gas and crude oil. You know, I was talking with one lady and I looked at her and you know she was like, we've got to do something. You know, oil and gas is has to be terminated. And I was
Right.
like, do you realize that 95% of the stuff on your body right now is brought to you courtesy of the Oil and Gas
Right.
Association? I was like, you know, those nice shoes, your Victoria's Secret that you like to wear,
The
all that
Amazon truck.
makeup. That's right. You know, it's everything on you right now is courtesy of oil and gas. So if you really and truly believe that in
Right.
your heart that, you know, oil and gas is bad, I was like, you need to go start buying you some hemp bags and start wearing you some of those Jesus sandals, you know, those Birkenstocks or something, but not the ones with the rubber sole. You know, you need to go all cork back, you know, like when they
So
did in BC days.
yeah, go get you a sheep and put it
Yeah.
in your yard. Okay. This morning, I saw a note as well too from the EU. They have now passed it is now legislation. This started a couple of years ago
Mhm.
that they said nuclear and natural gas are available for. They're considered in the renewable because they have to have them. So it is now legislation in the EU that you can use green money for natural gas and nuclear because they realize they can't get the windmills and everything else to work without them. I think that I'm hoping it comes this way with the US because it was in the Clean Air Act and a few others. They snuck those two in there for
Right.
available. But where I'm going with this is at least the EU is in such an energy crisis. They realized that in Europe, they need to approve natural gas legally. Boy, you should see the heads exploding today, Richard, on from all the people trying to get rid of natural gas. They're going, it's not legal.
Right. I've been, you know, I've been seeing it all week. You know, it's one thing to try and push your ideals in a forward direction, you
Right,
know, but you can't just pump the brakes overnight.
right,
You know, it's going to take a century before
right.
the technology is available to even make something like that happen. So what are you going to do? You're going to demonize the one thing, the one
Right.
steady source of energy that you do have in the
And
meantime and regulate and punish it into
right,
submission. And then when everything else fails, of course, natural gas is the only thing that you're going to left have standing right now.
right.
And you know, like California, even they realize, you know, they're pumping out, they're restarting all these coal factories and natural gas factories faster than you can shake a stick because
Yep.
all these Tesla owners, you know, they can't charge their car because of so many,
Of
you know,
rolling
rolling
blackouts.
blackouts, you know, and it's, you know, these guys are demonizing to the point where Chevron is coming to Texas because of so many
Yeah.
regulations and taxes, you know, that California is instilling. I mean, to the point to where Gavin Newsom is trying to recruit Floridians to come back. You know, it's you know, the tide is turning, people are waking up and
Yeah.
I
I
think
saw
politicians are too.
yesterday, and I think it was the Wall Street Journal. It was a funny, really a funny thing. The top three that are being exited is New York, California, and and Illinois. Those are the three losing. 1.3 million have left in the last bit, leaving those states. Florida's number one, Texas, and then another one that's a Republican run state. And I think it's funny that you have three of the biggest losers losing people, and that they're all heading to folks where they're being run by Republican mostly folks. And
Yeah,
it's
well,
I hope they leave their voting because I don't want them in Texas.
that's the key thing, you know. they need to leave their voting practices where they came from, and they need to realize that, they're coming to these places for a reason.
Right.
And they're coming to red states because of the benefits. And these people need to understand that,
Yeah.
if they keep voting the way that they have, they're going to turn their new home into their old home really quick.
Yeah.
And so
I just want to also take a sidestep, and that is, I don't really care what we use for power generation, as long as we can get the lowest cost kilowatt per hour to all people across the world and through our disproportionately impacted communities with the least amount of impact on the environment and the least cost to the consumer. Okay, I don't care if it's wind, I don't care if it's solar, I don't really care if it's nuclear. Nuclear is the number one. I mean, it is the best. Then you roll into natural gas, and then you roll into the other ones. And there's a time and a place for wind and solar and everything else. I don't want to say that it is not something we shouldn't do, but let the market decide. And if the market says your lowest cost kilowatt per hour is going to be natural gas, let's use it, because it's going to be the least impactful on the environment.
So here's another thing: solar will never be an option. It will not be. So they made a big solar farm out in Egypt, out in the middle of the desert. Biggest, I mean, this thing, I think it was something like 62 square miles of solar field or something like that.
Something like in the movie with Matthew McConaughey, Sahara.
Yeah, one of those post-apocalyptic shows,
Yeah.
It changed the entire ecosystem around it to where trees and grass started growing in the middle of the desert.
Wow.
And it affected the environment so much
that
it started killing part of the Amazon, because the Amazon depends on all the sand and nutrients from the Sahara to feed the rainforest. It actually started killing the rainforest.
Wait a minute. I'm a little bit, I actually went to Oklahoma State and I need crayons.
I'm sorry.
So are you an OU fan or a Texan fan? Which kind of?
Well, of course, I'm a Texan fan.
You notice I got Texas license plates. So Richard, I moved.
Yeah, but if I had to pick a college, it's Texas Tech.
I root for them too, except when they're playing OSU. But so in the Sahara, I mean, up in the Sahara, the rainforest is down in South America. So you're saying the sand up in the Sahara is needed all the way down over here in the rainforest?
Yep.
No kidding.
Yes, sir. Yes,
all
sir.
Right.
But the black from the solar, it captures so much heat.
Right.
And it started bringing in so much moisture that things started to actually grow where they haven't grown in almost a million years. So it's that's why they're scrapping it, and they've already started tearing it down because of the massive effects that it's had on two big ecological systems.
Last month I saw something where I saw that there is now proof where offshore wind farms are changing the temperature on the coast when they're coming in, because the wind is not coming in cooling it as much, and there is some serious climate change because of the wind turbines.
Sure. I mean, these people can speculate all they want, about the effects of methane. I read a study the other day about an F-150 and a quarter horse. They rode them each a mile, right? And you know what put out more emissions? The horse. By 27 times the amount of methane, I mean, CO2 that came out from a horse than an F-150. I mean, we're going way beyond just cow farts now, and whatever else AOC is spitting out. But
the amount of joke, but I'll let you take the hit.
But yeah, I'll take the hit. I have no problem with that. But the amount of misinformation that is coming out from a lot of these people with big voices and a big
Right.
audience, and it's just really tragic that a lot of people believe them without
Right.
actually doing research themselves. And then whenever if we're getting to the point to where, say I was to, go back and find that article and put it out,
Right.
you would get more hate about it, saying, oh, well, this is obviously right wing talking point
Right.
nonsense. It's ridiculous
I,
at the amount of people that just dispute facts
Richard, I
for no reason.
finally made it to the big leagues when I start getting trolls all mad at me. And I'm like, yeah, finally.
Yeah,
All right.
that's you
I
get a
have a
gold medal.
goal, and I set my bar on my podcast really low. And I want people to have fun. I mean, that's one of the biggest things. And I was visiting with you before we started kicking in, we're chit chatting, and I was going to set the bar really low and say, hey, I want to make sure this is the most fun podcast you've ever been on. But you got me, because before I even started, you just cut me out at my knees. What was your most fun podcast?
A Chad Prather show. If you can't have fun on his show, I mean, you're already 6 foot under pushing up daisies. I
Oh,
mean,
I know. I'm not
yeah,
where you're going. I can't compete with Chad. I love Chad, man. He is such a good cat.
it was the guy is so funny. My sides were hurting, and I actually, was trying to take a deep breath real quick before I had to talk because I was just laughing so much.
All right. So am I a close second?
Oh, absolutely.
Oh, okay, good.
Yeah,
Well, you had me
absolutely. I mean,
worried.
you're right there.
I was about to curl up in the fetal position, because Chad beat me. And I'm going to tag him on this so that we can have fun picking on him. In fact, I'd love to have him on my podcast. We'll have to see if we can get him in here.
Oh, there you go.
So I'll use you as a excuse. Hey, Chad. Hey, look.
Well, I don't know
Richard was
how far
talking
that.
smack.
Yeah, I don't know how far that's going to get you.
All right. What's coming around the corner next for you, Richard? You're out spreading the goodness of the oil and gas and the energy space. What's coming around the corner for you?
uh, I'm just doing the education part with
Okay.
Oil and Gas Workers Association. We have a couple of bills right now, a couple of them in front of Texas House, and two of them. Well, one of them right now is definitely in front of the House of Representatives, and
Okay.
we're trying to get another one in there right now. So we're busy pushing legislation and
Right.
definitely education to make to get the government off of not only the American citizen's neck,
Right.
but also the oil and gas industry, so we can get back to doing what we do best and
Right.
drilling.
Well, I'll tell you what, I just really appreciate you stop by the podcast. And if you're folks over there, and when you're working with them, if I can help in any way, let me know. I'd sure love to help you out. So,
Oh, absolutely.
uh,
Absolutely. I really appreciate that.
hey, next time you stop by the podcast, you'll be a president.
Oh, hey, there we go.
Could I be your Secretary of Energy? Okay.
Why not? Come
Why
on.
not? Hey. All right. Well, thank you very much. We'll see you next time.
Thank you. Appreciate it.